Today I'm going to be showing you how to do an SSH brute force attack using a list of usernames and passwords. So I'm just going to first by setting up a target. The target is going to be running OpenSSH, and I'm specifically using Linux Mint just because it's very lightweight. So this attack is just meant to get you the username and password into SSH based off of a large list of usernames and passwords. Hopefully you would have some kind of educated guess on what the username and password is. For this attack, we're going to be setting the password on the target system, so we'll know what it is and know to include it in the passwords list. But in a real pen test scenario, you might not have that. This attack, it's also worth noting, will cause a lot of noise in a real pen test scenario. But this video is really just to demonstrate how to use Metasploit as well as a beginner. So yeah, I'm just going to go through here and set up my Mint target system. So on our target system, in my case the Mint system, we're going to want to set up the OpenSSH server. I'm also going to set up the OpenSSH client. So Mint uses the apt package repository. So I'm just going to type sudo apt install OpenSSH client to get the OpenSSH client. This is what allows you to connect to other SSH servers. So this might not necessarily be totally necessary for this purpose, but we're also going to get the server. So sudo apt install OpenSSH server. This is what allows other clients to connect to us, and what allows this to be the target system. Before we go any further, we're going to want to make sure our VirtualBox's network adapter is set to bridge mode. To do this, we just click on settings and go down to network. On attached to, just click on bridged if it's not already. You may have to shut down the virtual machine before you do this. We can use the password command to change our password. And then after that, we're just going to verify that we can SSH into the server using the password reset. So make sure this all works before we go on to the next step. So I'm just going to open my normal Windows terminal and try to SSH into the virtual machine from outside. And as you can see, I got in just fine. So now we're going to want to go into our Kali VM that we set up last time. I'm just going to ping our SSH server in the Kali VM to make sure it works. You can see that the IP changed. It's just because I changed location. So just make sure it still works. I'm going to type msf console to open the Metasploit framework. Metasploit is made up of 4 different modules, including exploits, payloads, auxiliaries, and encoders. Exploits is a program that is used to attack vulnerabilities in the target. So these are things that will get you in, is the actual attacks. Payloads perform a task after the exploit runs. So these would be the commands that are automatically ran after you successfully get in. Auxiliaries are things like scanners and stuff that don't deploy directly against the system. That's what we'll be using today. Encoders are used to encrypt and obscure data. This way it makes it harder to see what you were doing by the defenders. So now that we're in the Metasploit console, we can actually use the search command to search for different modules within Metasploit. So if we type search and then followed by a string we want, we can just search through all the different modules. So we can search for things like exploits and auxiliaries. Here we're specifically looking for an SSH scanner, so we're going to search the scanner. And then you can see we can also combine different strings, so we can do scanner SSH. So we want to use this SSH login module, so we can type use 9. We could also type out use and then the whole module name. So once we're in the module, we can type show info to see the information about the module. Here we can see the description and all the options. We can also type show options just to get the options menu. In some other modules, the show info has a lot more information. So now we're going to want to create a passwords.txt file. So I'm just going to type nano passwords.txt. I already have this file created, but if you haven't, just type nano passwords.txt. You'll see the Metasploit console also acts as a bash shell, so you can run normal commands. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the user file. I'm just going to call it user.txt. You can really call these anything you want, just make sure you know which one is which. So within the user file, just make sure you have the user that your Mint system or whatever your target system's user is named. Now we're going to want to set the rhost. The rhost should be the target IP address of the SSH server. So just make sure that's right. We can also set the R port. The R port is the port that SSH is running on. By default, SSH runs on port 22, and in most cases it will run on port 22, but in some cases people will set their SSH ports to something else. So if you know the SSH port is something else, just set it to that. I'm just going to set it to port 22 again, even though it's already set by default, so you don't have to change this if you don't want. Now to set the password file, type set pass file, and then the password file's name, so password.txt in my case. And remember, you can just use the Metasploit console as a normal bash shell, so I can just type ls to see all the file names. And type set user file, and then user.txt to set our users. And now that all our required options are set, we can type run to run the command. We can also type exploit. I like to type exploit because it's more fun. And as you see, as the command will run, we will get the password. So if you didn't know the password and you just had a list of users and passwords, you could run this and figure out the password username. I think the shell is hanging here, but it is not. So I type who am I. Sometimes with some Metasploit exploits, you'll just see a hanging shell, and you'll be confused because you think it's loading, but it's not actually loading. You have a shell, but in this case, it's just loading. So now that the exploit is done running, we can type sessions tag L to see all of our open sessions. And as you can see, the exploit opened a shell. Using this list of shells, we can type sessions tag I. I is for interactive, or interact, and then the number, so we're going to do 1, and then we'll load into the SSH shell we had. So you can see we're in the shell. It's very bare bones right now. So we can just type commands and see that we are in the Mint system. We can type background to save the session so that we can return to it later and get back to the Metasploit console. So something you can do to make the shell a little bit better is make it an interpreter shell. Interpreter is Metasploit's built-in shell, and it has a whole bunch of advanced features. We're going to be going more into this later, but we can upgrade our existing shell to interpreter. So we're just going to list up the shells and type sessions tag U for upgrade, and then 1 for our shell, and now we have an interpreter shell. Now that it's done being created, we can type sessions tag L to see it, and then type sessions tag I, and now we're going to do 2 for the second shell to go into an interpreter shell. So this is an interpreter shell. As you can see, you can't just use normal bash commands. This is different than PowerShell or bash. It's its own unique shell. It is a very capable shell. We can type help to get the help menu. I'll be going more into depth in this in a later video, but it just has a lot of abilities. It's a lot stronger than a normal bash shell, especially designed for penetration testing.